writer's workshop. There's a time where you get everything set up, everything's ready to go. I'll get into more detail in other videos and post on how I get that structured with the students leading it themselves. But there's a time when the teacher comes on the stage, and I teach a lesson each time before we go into the workshop. And what I have discovered is that if I can get my lesson into 7 minutes, they can stick with me and it sticks with them. I have a little bit of information in the blog post that I will link below that talks about the science behind the brain and why the number 7 is so important with our memory. It's a really fascinating article. I actually share it with my students and they love to hear about that stuff, how the brain works. So I settled on 6 different skills that I focus on during that 7-minute time that I instruct them before they go off to do their own writing. And I settled on these 6 things because I'll tell you why. When I left teaching to be a published author, and I did a lot of, I wrote full time for a while. And what I discovered being away from teaching for a bit there was that a lot of the stuff that I'd focused on before wasn't the stuff that my editor was focusing on when I wrote and submitted stuff to the publisher. The stuff, any kind of grammar, sentence structure, all that kind of stuff that we sort of focus on, the ticky-tacky stuff, is not important at the very beginning. And even my main editor doesn't catch all of that stuff. Those things move on to the copy editor, and that's later down the road, and that's for a totally different skill set. And I do teach grammar and all of that, and I'll talk about that more. Probably another video on how to separate all this out. But I came up with 6 skills that I know would help anyone who's trying to become a writer in any field. Like maybe it's literature, it's fiction, it's expository, it's article writing, whatever it is that you want to do. If you can work on these 6 things, you will get there. So I always start with voice. That's number 1, and I have a video just on that. And then we move into the other ones and we go around. And I'll show them to you in just a minute, but we go around and we continue to go around. And I repeat these 6 skills every single time. Every time we come up, we go to the next one, go to the next one, to the point where the students know these 6 skills. Eventually, when they really know this stuff, all I have to do for my 7-minute instruction block there is I can just put up a sentence on the board that a student usually has written and just say, what do you notice? And they are able to go through and pick out of those 6 skills what is being shown here and talk about it. And I can just let them talk. It's amazing. So I'm gonna head over to the screen. I'm gonna show you what these 6 skills are and we'll talk about it over there. Now here is the chart that I made to display to my students so they can see what the 6 super skills are. And I pull this up every time we have a writer's workshop so they know which skill we're working on. I'm going to show you how I present this onto the screen. So down here on the bottom, there's a little pointer here, and I resize it a little, kind of make it a little bit bigger maybe, and I pull it over to whichever skill we're working on. So let's say we're going to start with skill number 1, which is working with voice. I'm going to point it at number 1. Sorry, number 1, I just put you in the wrong spot there, bud. Let me get this angled here so that it's pointed right. So if we're going to start with skill number 1, which is voice, when I put this up onto the screen, I then go to slideshow up in the top right corner here. That makes it nice and big. So it's all ready to go. So they see what we're working on. So this will move around each time we have the workshop, depending on what we're working on. So we start with voice. There's a series of activities that I go through that I've talked about in another video that you can check out. After that, and I do these in order, I find that it makes most sense for them to do it this way. We move on to hooks, which is not just, how to start your essay, but also how to start your fiction writing or, your persuasive writing, any kind of writing. All writing should have a hook. Everything should be interesting. So hooks are huge, and I come back to them all the time. I think we should spend way more time on hooks than we do. Then we move on to sentence complexity, number 3 here. This is a skill that's used with their expository writing, with their essays, anything they're doing, they need this skill of sentence complexity, which is length. And it could be the types of phrases that they use, how they start a sentence. So I talked to them about a WUBIS. So if you don't know what that is, Google that and you'll get a nice chart. It stands for like all the most common prepositional phrases, like how you could start a sentence with. It stands for like as, although, after, when, while, unless, because, before, if, and since. So can't believe I just remembered that. And then we just start there. So they are, sometimes I give them a rule that they have to do at least one sentence per paragraph that has an awubis beginning to it. And then we can add from there. After that, we really get into figurative language, lesson 4. Similes, we hit those up big. And metaphors are kind of, they're actually pretty tough for 4th, 5th, 6th, even up into 8th grade, they're tough. But they love hyperbole and personification, of course. And then we move on to vivid imageries, those really specific nouns, strong verbs, all the senses, all of that. And then finally, we move to show, don't tell. How can you show this whole situation to me without telling me what the emotion is? Now, once we get through all of these, guess what we do? We repeat. We go back to 1, on to 2, on to 3, and we keep doing this all year round to the point where eventually I don't even actually have to teach a lesson anymore. I can just put one of the students' sentences up on the board and say, what do you notice? And they will tell me, well, I see complexity because it starts this way, or I see simile, or I see some strong imagery, or, that's where you want to get to. That's the goal. Now, this chart, if you are interested in this, you can have this for free. There's a link below. You just click on that and this will get sent to your Google Drive, and it'll have this little hand on here, and you can just like move it around so that you can display it for your students in the way that you'd like for it to be displayed. I hope that helped. Thanks for watching.